Have you been so close to winning a game in a push map, only for the enemy to retaliate and somehow turn the tide of the battle in their favor? That's because you and your team have created some faulty errors that have led to your loss, and so we're going to go over those reasons today and how to overcome them. That being said, if you enjoy educational content, want to see more Overwatch 2 guides, then be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get straight to the first reason. You're losing on push maps in Overwatch 2 because you're overextending and giving up too much valuable real estate for the enemy to retaliate. Now, on the surface, push maps might seem easy in the sense that, well, the plan is get to the end of the line, close out the game, and win. But in the grand scheme of things, push maps are actually very intricate in that they're really all about territorial control. Think of it as two opposing countries trying to fight for land, and whoever has the most land has the most control and power. And so you need to think of it in the term of control. You want to be controlling the amount of real estate you own and preventing the enemy from gaining that real estate back. So how do you do that? Well, for one, there is a timer on the top of the screen, and that timer can be your best ally. So if you have a sizable lead, there's really no need for you to push the robot too far into the enemy's territory, because in doing so, you are now allowing the enemy team to respawn and therefore retake that space that you've just worked so hard for. So instead of pushing the robot all the way through when you have a lead, sit on the lead and leave the robot just far enough to where you and your team can sit there and wait for the enemy to come to you. And even if you were to lose the fight, for example, the robot is still close enough to your spawn, so therefore your team can now retaliate and regain that control. So that is the biggest mistake that players tend to make, is that they overextend, they lack that team coordination, and as a result, you lose all of that valuable resource that is land, and now you give all that up because you went too far, got too greedy, and didn't sit on your lead. So time is your best friend. Make sure to remember that. Use time against the enemy, sit on that life lead, and if things do get out of hand, just be sure not to panic. Make sure to keep calm and just look at the situation. But most importantly, once again, keep the robot at a safe distance to where you and your team can come back from your spawn and fight them on equal ground. Let's get straight to part 2. Now, while the objective of push maps is very much the same, the overall game plan needs to change for every respective map you play on. The way you'd play on New Queen Street is not going to be the same way you'd play on Esperanza or even Coliseo. And that's just simply because of the map layout. Some characters are going to favor better on some maps over others. And so you need to orchestrate a strong strategy to therefore gain ground and always have the advantage over the enemy. And the way to do so is to have structure. Know that push is all about a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything has a story. Everything has some form of structure that you need to really think about carefully, because going into every push map with a linear one-track mindset will oftentimes lead you into uncertain and unfavorable situations. So learning to adapt on the fly, knowing which characters will value you more on certain maps will therefore grant you victory. So for example, on Esperanza, characters like Ashe, Soldier, Mei, even Torbjorn can really favor you better just because of the way the map layout is designed to favor more of a mid-range, maybe long-range poking game. You can pepper the enemy from afar and you can gain more control over territory versus, let's say, Colosseo, where that can favor more like Widow because there's a long line of sight in that tunnel where one sniper shot can really, turn the tides of the game in your favor or the enemy's favor. So once again, having a structured game plan, knowing which characters will favor you down the road will ultimately give you more of the advantage. But most importantly, it's not just about the bot, because again, if your only main objective is push the bot, also consider that the enemy team is not dumb. The enemy team is going to also try and figure out ways to counter you and your team by picking characters that favor them. And so you need to improvise and come up with solutions to win every fight, because it's not just about the bot, it's about winning the fight. The fights are really where you will gain more of the advantage. This is where you're going to gain more territory and ultimately more control over the enemy, which is going to force them to think of something new. So you have to always be consistently thinking of new ideas to prevent the enemy from winning every engagement, because the more you win your engagements, the more ground you cover, and as a result, it forces the enemy back and they now have to fight for more of that real estate. So all that being said, again, have a structure, know which characters are going to benefit you, and use that to your advantage for every respective map. And from there, you'll find solutions to win on push maps. That being said, let's move on to the last point. Now this last point might seem like a weird one, but disrespecting the enemy team and not giving them enough credit can really lead to your downfall if you're not careful. And the reason why is because overconfidence can lead to a lot of faulty mistakes. You become so one-dimensional in your approach because you think you're winning so much, you have such a sizable lead that you think it's just not possible for the enemy to come back. And that right there is a surefire sign of you and your team perhaps losing. Never, ever in a game disrespect the enemy and think that it's game over because you have a massive lead. All it takes from that enemy team is to win 1 or 2 fights, and for you and your team to make too many mistakes, and it's game over. So try your best to stay focused all the way through to the very end. Don't ever, ever underestimate the enemy, and respect them enough to where they can always find ways to come back. Because in a push map, there will always be situations where opportunities will arise, and you need to be very, very cognizant of those opportunities and prevent them from happening as frequently as possible. So all that being said, if you want to see more educational guides, then be sure to check out some of the videos on screen, as they will help you to overcome any adversity in Overwatch 2. And until next time, happy gaming, take care, and have a great one. Peace.